Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Candela Obscura, and specifically we're going to talk about the rules for Candela Obscura, which were just displayed in their own separate video by the creator of the game, Spenser Starke. I think there's another creator in there, but they put Spenser Starke on point to present to present this, to actually tell you how Candela Obscura is played. Right now, this is pretty interesting. Okay, from the perspective of this has the all right. We're let's talk it through. You and I are table. I'm a dungeon master, right? You're a dungeon master, right? So we know whenever something tries to get done, when you're trying to do a thing, you roll the 20, right? So first of all, what is the difficulty? What is the difficulty to defeat Dungeons and Dragons on? What is the difficulty to defeat Dungeons and Dragons from Candela Obscura? Okay, the difficulty on a D20 check, on a difficulty check, is 30. You need to get a 30 to defeat Dungeons and Dragons. Now that's okay, because that means if the D20 comes up if the D20 comes up at 20, you have a critical. Your dungeon master says you're successful, right? And here's the other thing is, what is the plus that they're getting to their roll, right? So first of all, okay, let's say you are at. Great question. We're gonna roll the die to see if Candela Obscura can defeat Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. So first of all, they're at a -2. Why are they at a -2? Taliesin Jaffe, absolutely terrible choice to be the point lead on this, right? They could have picked Ashley Johnson. They could have picked Laura Bailey. They could have picked anybody but anyone on Critical Role. Well, first of all, I get it. They're not going to put Matthew Mercer on Candela Obscura, right? And the reason why is he's the main show, right? They need him to run. Matthew Mercer isn't going to waste time on being the lead on Candela Obscura. He's too busy creating Dungeons and Dragons, Zelda homebrews, right? That's where the real money's at. That's where the real shine is at. So Candela Obscura is a competitor to Dungeons and Dragons. It's trying to unseat Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of outlets are really rooting for Critical Role to defeat Dungeons and Dragons, right? They're really rooting for them to defeat Dungeons and Dragons, right? With Candela Obscura. So you're going to roll your D20, right? You need to hit a 30. You're starting at a -2 with Taliesin Jaffe, because I literally think he has negative charisma for this or any project. I don't think Taliesin Jaffe deserves his seat at the table for Critical Role. I think he's literally dead weight that Matthew Mercer has to carry, right? Sam Riegel, he's got a lot of charisma. He's got some funniness. I think he tells incredibly inappropriate jokes, but he's not boring, right? And Taliesin Jaffe, I just genuinely think is not really bringing anything to the table, right? But they gave him the lead on this. You're at a -2, okay? Now, let's talk about the actual rule system that was brought forward by Spenser Starke. But before we get there, right, it was a huge mistake to let Spenser Starke present these rules, right? Dungeons and Dragons, people just castigate them left and right, but they actually know what they're doing. One of the things they did a while ago was, in presenting the rules for Dungeons and Dragons, right, they actually got professional actors, right? Spenser Starke does not look like he should be presenting anything publicly, right? He doesn't look like. I would say even this: Christopher Perkins and Jeremy Crawford, they are aware that they need to be. They are aware that when they're presenting the Dungeons and Dragons rules, they stay slim, and they do everything they can to keep a presence, to put a presence on, right? That even remotely approaches a Hollywood presence, right? And so just think about the visual shock of going from Matthew Mercer, Marisha Ray, Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey, Ashley Johnson, all like, and then here's Spenser Starke, right? Like it's jarring, right? And he is a game designer, right? And get this, Dungeons and Dragons has game designers that are not camera ready, right? They're just not camera ready, right? And they don't put them in front of the camera, right? Like Kate Welch, camera ready, right? Like, and that's my entire point, is they're just making mistake after mistake after mistake. Spenser Starke designed these rules. He should not have presented them, right? They're trying to win viewers, right? So that's a -1, right? Not as bad as Taliesin Jaffe, right? But Spenser Starke just presenting the rules, that's a -1, right? So now you have a -3 on the roll, okay? Are there any pluses? Yes, there are pluses. Spenser Starke is terrible at presenting his rules, but the rules are not terrible. Actually, they're pretty good. The rules on, so now that we've seen them, Candela Obscura's rules are pretty much, I think it's Blades in the Dark, right? And you're like, wait, Scott, Blades in the Dark is kind of like Powered by the Apocalypse. No. John Harper truly improved on what stage. So first of all, Vincent D. Baker, forget him, right? That dude knew nothing about. He was a good rules designer, right? But he cocked it up majorly, right, in a lot of ways. So Vincent D. Baker, who actually created Apocalypse World, where Powered by the Apocalypse came out of, he never cared about spreading the rules, and so he did nothing to really support it. In addition to that, he created this very powerful, very adaptive rule system, and buried it under one of the worst, most inaccessible, most adult, like if you're 12 years old and you watch Stranger Things, right? You can come in and Dungeons and Dragons is like, come on in, man, we got you covered. We kept this clean. We kept this accessible for you, right? So that you can play it in middle school and you can play it in high school, right? Vincent D. Baker is like, oh, do you like my rule system? You can go kick rocks. It's buried under this Apocalypse World, which is completely inaccessible to you. He did nothing to spread the rules he built, right? Then Sage Latour and Adam Cobell came, right? They created Dungeon World, which massively pushed forward, which really, Powered by the Apocalypse, in my humble opinion, would not exist without Adam Cobell and Sage Latour. Period. End of sentence. Vincent D. Baker did nothing to make Powered by the Apocalypse manifest, which is a huge system that a lot of people play and that has done very, very well, right? And there are literally easily 100, maybe 300 good Powered by the Apocalypse games. There might even be 500 to 1,000 PBTA games, right? But that doesn't mean they're all good. But there are easily 100, maybe as high as 300 good PBTA games, right? Then John Harper, okay, he came in and he created Blades in the Dark, which boosted far beyond, which really just took a smell of PBTA and turned it into a real system, right? And so the visual design you are seeing, the inspiration you are seeing is all coming straight from Blades from the Dark, okay? Now, here's the thing. You're like, oh, so you're saying they just copied Blades in the Dark? I am. They just copied Blades in the Dark. It's pretty I don't think it's brilliant, but here's the thing. That's totally okay. That's totally okay, right? For them to copy Blades in the Dark. And the reason why is rules are not copyrightable, right? So it's okay. It's okay that they copied Blades in the Dark, right? The other thing is Blades in the Dark is actually a game. There's nothing transformative about Blades in the Dark. It's like, it's not Dungeons and Dragons, period. It's just not Dungeons and Dragons. It's not the same as copying Dungeons and Dragons. It's copying a TTRPG, right? Get this. I don't even really consider Dungeons and Dragons a TTRPG anymore because it has a fundamental ingredient no other tabletop role-playing game in the world has, right? So it's totally okay that they copied Blades in the Dark. But there was a mistake. First of all, if you're going to copy Blades in the Dark, what the heck? John Harper ain't doing nothing, right? Like, why get somebody who's going to copy John Harper for you when you can literally get John Harper, right? So one, I really think they should have considered going and getting John Harper and having him build something new and fresh and real. And that's the other thing that's really a little upsetting to me is as we move forward and as there are games, and it's on like Donkey Kong. There's a real drive within the tabletop role-playing game space to displace and defeat Dungeons & Dragons, right? So if you're going to come for the king, you best not miss, right? Don't hire Spenser Starke when you can hire John Harper, right? Why didn't you just go get John Harper? Now, I'm not going to take any negative points off of that, right? And the reason why is rules are not copyrightable, okay? There's not, and one of my favorite games in the world, Index Card RPG. It is fantastic, right? I would say it's my there's Dungeons & Dragons, and then there's Index Card RPG, right? And it copied Dungeons & Dragons. It's okay to copy Dungeons & Dragons. What it's not okay is to copy something and then berate it and pretend that you're better than it. That's not okay. And that's kind of what gets my fur up about OSR, right? Like, it's okay that they copy Dungeons & Dragons rules, but take your place, man. Don't, if you copied something, don't for 1 second say that you did it better, right? Like, you literally are coming with copy energy, right? Like, and the other thing is let others say it. Let others say your stuff is better than D&D, right? And the creators of OSR are incredibly disrespectful at the macro level to Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion, right? So that's one of my beefs there. But it's okay that they copied Blades in the Dark. But I do think it was a mistake. You could have just went and got John Harper. Like, he's not doing anything. Like, he's active and he is maintaining. But let's put it this way: if Matthew Mercer, if actually anyone from Critical Role picks up the phone and says, "Hey, you know who Critical Role is? We need a new game. Will you write it?" Done. It's done. Like, John Harper, he is doing stuff, but he's not. But he will stop his projects to build a new game for. So that was a loss. They should have just got John Harper and had him build something up, right? So instead, they get Spenser Starke. Spenser Starke does a good copy, and I will say that it is a good copy of Blades in the Dark, right? And it's got a few innovative ideas here and there. And actually, to tell the truth, he did ape the style, the character sheet style, and even the rules mechanics of Blades in the Dark very well, and that's a good game. That is a bonkers good game. That is a very powerfully, that is a solid game, right? So this is a copy based off of a good foundation stone, right? So you have that there, right? And so essentially you have playbooks, right? And the one thing I did like is you get you fill up bleed, body, and mind. So like there's and they have different words for it, but it's your physical body, it's your mind, and then it's almost like your spirit or your will, and you have 3 blocks that you can fill up for each one of those, right? And whenever you need to take a whenever you need to fill in a block and you can't because they're all 3 are already filled, you take scars, right? And when you take all the scar, now here we go, right? Did they get it right? Did Candela Obscura? And this is the problem, right? This is why you go get John Harper and you don't leave this to Spenser Starke, right? When you fill up all your bleed, your body, and there's another word in there, bleed, body, and mind, right? When you fill up those slots, you take scars. When you fill up all 3 scars, you should be dead, but you're not. You are either permanently disabled, right? You are permanently. I don't think the word was disabled. Permanently You're not able to move or do anything. But they very carefully said permanently disabled. They might have used a different word there. Or dead. Right? They didn't have the stones for it, right? And I knew this, right? That this is, and here's the issue, right? As soon as you start getting off of D&D, and this is why I stay on D&D, you start getting in this storyteller game, right? There are lots of storyteller games. A Quiet Year is the best storyteller game I've ever read, right? I read it. It was fantastic. A lot of people consider it a tabletop role-playing game. It's not, right? And that's the point, right? Dungeons & Dragons is like, when you fail your death save, you die, right? There might be a resurrection, but somebody's going to have to quest for it, right? But you're dead, right? This game doesn't even have the teeth to use the word, right? You said, or you're dead. And what they're doing is they're provisioning people who don't want death in their game, right? And one, that's a no-go, man. You need to be able to die in your tabletop role-playing game. And the fact that they couldn't even, like, I was waiting for it. I was like, and you know, and I guess I have to admit, I'm like others. A lot of people are like, if you don't have falling damage in your game, I don't want to play it, right? If you don't have death in your game, I definitely don't want to play it, right? Like, and that's just it. They have already provisioned it so that it's an or, right? So that, like, and the moment you do that, any player at the table can say, I would rather not die. I'd rather be permanently disabled. Let's just say I'm turned into stone, and then I'll come back later and get unturned into stone. And that's that, right? Like, you know, like, and so that's my point, is they didn't have, they couldn't find the 2 down there to put death on it, right? And so it's or death. It's permanently, I wish I could remember the word they use. I think they might have used to say it's permanently debilitated. Permanently debilitated. I think that was the correct term. Permanently debilitated or dead, right? Not dead, right? Because, and this is the thing I love, right? Everybody's got jokes. Everybody's got a harsh word for D&D until it's your turn to shut up and put up, right? And the moment you need to put up, oh, wow, look how fast you slammed into a wall, right? And so the rules, I will say this, the rules are a +1 overall. It's pretty well executed. It's a pretty well executed copy of strong rules, okay? So, -2 for Taliesin Jaffe, -1 for putting Spenser Starke on screen. And then, rather than getting somebody who's camera ready, you know, like, Spenser Starke is a brilliant guy, and actually, I think he there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way Spenser Starke looks. Spenser Starke is only a like, could you imagine if you know, let me explain, okay? If you're expecting to see Ryan Gosling and I show up, right, like, that's a problem. You understand what I'm saying, right? There's nothing wrong with the way he looks. He's just not Hollywood. He doesn't have a Hollywood presence. And get this, right? People turning in for Critical Role, they're expecting a Hollywood presence, and they get it. They get it, right? Like that, you know, that's a thing, right? So, and not to joke, I watch a show called Ghost. That's a real Hollywood actor. He's playing D&D with them right now. Like, saying that people will be expecting a Hollywood presence is not an exaggeration. It's quite literal, right? So I just wanted to give you, you know, that, explain to you where that's at. -3. +1 for the rules. That means you have a -2 when you roll, okay? Which means you have to get a critical. You have to roll a 20 to beat Dungeons & Dragons. And I think Candela Obscura has a 5% chance of beating Dungeons & Dragons, but has a 95% chance of getting crushed. I did want to say thank you to Critical Role for putting out the rules in a very well executed, very nice, beautifully crafted video that tells us exactly how to play it. They did a really good job of that. That's my opinion on Candela Obscura's attempt to unseat Dungeons & Dragons. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.